The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched before Admiral Jake Morrison like a vast metal cave filled with the most powerful beings in known space. 12 different alien species sat in their assigned seats, each one representing billions of lives across thousands of worlds. The air hummed with translation devices working to convert dozens of languages into something humans could understand. Jake stood at the center of it all, his Blue Earth Defense Fleet uniform looking plain next to the elaborate robes and biomechanical suits worn by the alien delegates. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked beside him, her face calm but her hands shaking slightly as she held the datapad containing humanity's final statement. They both knew this was not going to end well. The signs had been there for months, trade agreements canceled without explanation, diplomatic meetings postponed indefinitely, human ships turned away from stations they had helped build. Chancellor Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his crystal throne, his four arms spreading wide in what humans had learned was a gesture of absolute authority. His skin shifted from deep blue to an angry red as he began to speak. The translation came through clear and cold. The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding the human species, Kethvar announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. After careful consideration of their actions over the past 50 years, we find them unsuitable for continued membership in galactic civilization. Jake felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady despite everything. May we know the specific charges against humanity? The Altarian representative, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of silver, rustled its metallic leaves in what served as their equivalent of laughter. You ask for specifics when your crimes are written across the galaxy in blood and fire. Your species expands too quickly, added the Vakari delegate, her cat-like features twisted in disgust. You claim new worlds without proper authorization. You build colonies faster than we can catalog them. You show no respect for the ancient boundaries established by your betters. The hegemony speaker, a massive creature whose voice sounded like grinding stone, leaned forward. Your military grows stronger each year. Your ships become more advanced. Your weapons become more deadly. You prepare for war while speaking of peace. And worst of all, Kethvar continued, you refuse to accept your place in the natural order. You question our decisions. You demand equal treatment despite being the youngest species in the council. You act as if your primitive culture has value equal to civilizations that are millions of years old. Jake wanted to speak, to defend his species, but he knew it would do no good. This decision had been made long before today. The trial was just for show. Lisa tried anyway. Humanity has contributed greatly to galactic civilization. We have shared our technology freely. We have helped broker peace between warring species. We have provided humanitarian aid to worlds in crisis. We have never started a war or conquered territory that belonged to others. You have done these things because we allowed it, the Stellan representative replied, his mechanical voice devoid of emotion. But your usefulness has come to an end. Your independence threatens the stability we have worked for eons to achieve. Kethvar stood again, and the entire chamber fell silent. The sentence is exile. Humanity has 30 standard galactic cycles to withdraw all presence beyond the Sol system. Any human vessel, station, or colony found outside your home system after this period will be destroyed without warning. All trade agreements are void. All diplomatic relations are severed. All communication channels will be closed to human frequencies. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. 30 cycles meant 30 Earth days. Impossible. They had colonies with millions of people, research stations conducting vital work, trade posts that employed thousands, mining operations that entire worlds depended on. 30 days is not enough time, Lisa protested. We have civilian populations to evacuate, children, elderly, medical facilities that cannot be easily moved. Then you should not have built so far from home, Kethvar replied coldly. The decision is final. Captain Holland of your vessel, Defiant, will coordinate the evacuation. Any delay will result in immediate military action. Captain Steve Holland, who had been standing silently behind Jake, stepped forward. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. Understood. We will comply with your demands. The chamber began to empty as the alien delegates filed out, their work complete. None looked back at the humans standing, alone in the center of the vast room. Jake watched them go, each species that humanity had helped, traded with, fought alongside, or saved from disaster, all of them united in their rejection of his people. Lisa touched his arm gently. We should go. There is much work to do. Jake nodded slowly, taking one last look around the chamber where humanity had once held a seat of honor. So, this is how it ends. Not with war or disaster, but with a vote. As they walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoed in the empty space. Behind them, the lights began to dim as the council prepared to conduct business without human interference. The age of human participation in galactic affairs was over. The age of human isolation was about to begin. The first ships would launch within hours, carrying refugees from worlds they had called home for generations. The greatest exodus in human history was about to unfold, and no one knew if they would ever return. 8 years had passed since the last human ship crossed the invisible barrier that marked the edge of Sol system, and Commander Rick Hayes stood on the observation deck of Defense Platform Alpha, watching the construction of humanity's new fortress. The platform stretched for kilometers in every direction, bristling with weapons and sensors that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. Similar installations orbited every major body in the system, creating a defensive network that could stop any invasion fleet. Rick adjusted his collar and checked his watch. Director Helen Price was due to arrive any minute for the monthly progress briefing, and she always brought news that changed everything they thought they knew about what humans could accomplish when left alone. The transport docked with a soft vibration that Rick felt through the deck plating. Helen emerged from the airlock, carrying a data case that probably contained enough technological advances to revolutionize galactic civilization, if anyone in the galaxy was still talking to them. Her gray hair was pulled back in the same practical style she had worn as a research assistant 30 years ago, but her eyes held a brightness that had only grown stronger since the exile. "Good morning, Rick," she said, setting the case on the conference table. "Ready to see what we have accomplished this month?" Rick poured coffee for both of them and sat down. "Always. What impossible thing have our people invented now?" Helen smiled, and opened the case, revealing a series of data crystals that glowed with soft internal light. "Quantum tunneling drives are now operational on 17 ships. We can cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. The communication array project is complete. We can send messages instantly to any point within 100 light years. And the Artificial Intelligence Division has created thinking machines that make our old computers look like pocket calculators." She held up another crystal. "But the real breakthrough is Project Genesis. Amy Brooks and her team have perfected terraforming, technology that can turn a dead rock into a garden world in less than 20 years. We are no longer limited to finding planets that can support human life. We can create them." Rick leaned back in his chair, trying to process the implications. "How many people know about this? Everyone who needs to." President Johnson approved. "Full disclosure to the civilian government last week. The people have a right to know what we are capable of now." Through the observation window, Rick could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. It looked peaceful from this distance, but he knew that every major city was buzzing with activity as humanity prepared for something the galaxy had never seen before. Not conquest or revenge, but expansion on a scale that would make their previous efforts look tiny. "What about the galaxy?" Rick asked. "Any word from our monitoring stations?" Helen's expression grew more serious. "The situation continues to deteriorate. The Vakari and Stellan conflict has spread to 12 systems. The trade networks are collapsing without human maintenance. Economic projections suggest a complete breakdown within 5 years." She pulled. Up a holographic display showing the galactic political map. Large sections that had once been green, indicating stable regions, now flashed red or yellow. The Hegemony War started 6 months ago when the Altarians tried to claim the Zephyrian mineral rights in the outer spiral. 4 major species are now involved, and civilian casualties are approaching 50 million. Rick studied the display, noting how many of the conflict zones were areas where human diplomats had once kept the peace. Any attempts to contact us? 3. All from minor species asking for mediation services. The council members are still maintaining their official silence. Helen paused. Though our intelligence suggests some of them are beginning to question the wisdom of the exile. Too late for regrets now, Rick said quietly. He had lost friends in the evacuation. Good people who died trying to help others escape worlds they had called home. The galaxy had made its choice. Helen activated another display showing the current location of human colony ships. Admiral Morrison wants you to know that the Aurora reached the Andromeda staging area yesterday. Captain Santos reports successful establishment of the first permanent settlement. They are calling it New Terra. Rick felt a surge of pride. While the galaxy tore itself apart, humanity was building something new and better in the dark spaces between stars. They had learned from their mistakes, and this time they would not be dependent on the approval of others. How many more ships are ready for departure? 15 colony vessels and 30 escort ships will launch next month. The target is a star cluster 8,000 light-years beyond Council space. Long-range surveys indicate at least 20 suitable worlds, Rick whistled, softly. 20 worlds in one cluster. That would double our current colonial population. And it is just the beginning, Helen said, closing the data case. The president wants to brief the full cabinet on Phase 2 next week. We are not just leaving Council space, we are leaving this entire section of the galaxy. She stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at the stars. Do you ever wonder what they would think if they knew what we were doing out here? Rick joined her at the window. Probably that we were proving them right about being dangerous. Maybe we are, Helen replied, but not in the way they think. We are dangerous to ignorance, to stagnation, to the idea that things must always stay the same. In the distance, another construction ship moved into position to begin work on Defense Platform Beta. The ship was sleek and fast, its design incorporating technologies that had been developed entirely in isolation. It looked nothing like the vessels humanity had built when they were trying to fit in with galactic standards. How long do you think it will be before they realize their mistake? Rick asked. Helen considered the question carefully. The smart ones already know. But pride is a powerful force, and admitting they were wrong would mean admitting they destroyed their own civilization for no good reason. And if they never admit it, then they will become a historical footnote while we build. Something better among the stars. Helen picked up her case and headed toward the airlock. The galaxy chose to silence us, Rick. But silence can be a gift if you know how to use it. As her transport pulled away from the platform, Rick remained at the window watching the ships move through space around him. Each one represented thousands of hours of human ingenuity and determination. They were no longer the species that had begged for acceptance at the council table. They were something new, something unprecedented. The galaxy had wanted humanity to disappear into the dark between stars. Instead, they had chosen to light new stars of their own. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the colony ship Aurora as it emerged from the quantum tunnel into the Kepler cluster, 16 years after humanity had been cast out from galactic civilization. The stars here looked different from those around Earth, younger and brighter, with none of the ancient scars that marked the worlds near Council space. This was virgin territory, untouched by the political games and territorial disputes that had poisoned the galaxy they left behind. Navigation confirms our position, reported Lieutenant Commander Danny Walsh from his station. We are now 8,000 light-years beyond the furthest Council outpost. No signs of any artificial signals or structures. Maria nodded, watching. The main screen displayed the star system they had chosen for New Terra. 3 planets orbited in the habitable zone, with 2 more that could be made suitable with terraforming. Asteroid belts rich in rare metals. Gas giants perfect for fuel harvesting. It was everything they had hoped for and more. Communications. Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 1 deployment. Behind the Aurora, 49 other ships began to spread, out through the system. Some carried the 50,000 colonists who would become the first citizens of New Terra. Others held the equipment and supplies needed to transform raw worlds into human homes. The newest vessels, built with technology the Council had never seen, moved like dancers through space. Dr. Sandra White joined Maria on the bridge, her excitement barely contained as she studied the sensor readings from the target planet. The atmospheric composition is better than we hoped. Oxygen at 12%, nitrogen at 70%. We can work with this. How long for full terraforming? Maria asked. With the new biocatalysts and atmospheric processors, 18 months for basic habitability, 5 years for Earth normal conditions. Sandra paused, checking her notes. The other 2 planets will take longer, but we can have all 3 supporting full ecosystems within a decade. Maria smiled. When humanity had first joined the galactic community, terraforming a single world took centuries. Now they could create garden planets faster than some species could build cities. The years of isolation had not been wasted. Engineer Tony Clark's voice came over the comm system from the orbital construction platform they had deployed an hour ago. Captain, we have the stellar collection array online. Energy output is exceeding all projections. We can power the entire terraforming operation and still have enough left over for the industrial complexes. Through the bridge windows, Maria could see the array beginning to unfold, like a massive flower made of metal and crystal. It would harvest energy directly from the system's star, providing more power than humanity had ever had access to before. No longer would they need to burn fossil fuels or split atoms. They had learned to drink from the source of all energy in the universe. Any word from the other colony groups? Maria asked her communications officer. New Olympia reports successful planetfall in the Hercules sector. New Geneva is 3 days out from their target system in the Perseus Arm. All colony ships are maintaining communication through the quantum network. Maria felt a deep satisfaction hearing those reports. While the Council believed humanity was trapped in the Sol system, they had actually expanded further and faster than any species in galactic history. Dozens of new worlds were being settled simultaneously across 3 different galaxy arms. The quantum tunnel network allowed instant travel between systems that were thousands of light years apart. Captain, called the sensor operator, I am picking up something unusual from the inner system. The main screen shifted to show a detailed scan of the space around the star. There, hidden in the glare of stellar radiation, massive structures were taking shape as automated construction ships assembled them from raw materials harvested from nearby asteroids. The first habitat ring will be complete in 6 months, Tony reported from his orbital platform. Housing for 2 million people, with full gravity simulation and Earth normal environment. We are not just terraforming planets anymore. We are building worlds from scratch. Dr. Sandra White pulled up a holographic display showing the planned development of the entire star system. In 10 years, this single system will house more humans than lived in all of Council space when we were exiled. And it is just one of 47 systems we are currently developing. Maria studied the display, trying to comprehend the scale of what they were accomplishing. Entire civilizations built from nothing, worlds brought to life through human will and ingenuity, technologies that would have seemed magical to the species that had rejected them. What about defense? Maria asked. Already in place, replied Commander Walsh. We have detection grids monitoring all approaches to human space. Any ship that comes within 100 light years of our territory will be tracked and identified. The new defensive platforms can eliminate threats before they know we exist, and if the Council ever decides to look for us, they would find empty space where they expect to see us, and inhabited worlds where they expect to see nothing. Walsh smiled grimly. Our sensor masking technology makes us invisible to their detection methods. As far as they know, we disappeared completely. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message from Earth. Admiral Jake Morrison's weathered face appeared on the secondary screen, looking older, but with eyes that burned with fierce determination. Maria, congratulations on successful deployment of Colony Group 7. President Johnson wants you to know that Phase 3 has been approved. We are moving into the Magellanic Clouds. Maria felt her breath catch. The Magellanic Clouds were satellite galaxies orbiting the Milky Way. If humanity was expanding there, they were no longer just leaving Council space. They were leaving the galaxy entirely. How many ships for Phase 3? She asked. 200 colony vessels. 1 million colonists. Full industrial and terraforming capability. Morrison paused. We are not just surviving our exile, Maria. We are transcending it. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Around them, the work of building New Terra continued as construction ships moved supplies and equipment down to the planet's surface. In a few hours, the first human children would breathe the air of a world 8,000 light years from Earth. Dr. Sandra White broke the silence. Do you think they have any idea what they set in motion when they exiled us? Maria looked out at the stars, thinking of all the human worlds now scattered across the galaxy and beyond. They wanted us to disappear. Instead, they freed us to become something greater than we ever could have been under their rules. And when they finally realize what we have become, it will be too late, Maria replied. We are no longer the species they rejected. We are something new, something they cannot control or contain. The galaxy will have to deal with us as equals, or not at all. Behind them, the first shuttle launched toward New Terra, carrying the pioneers who would plant humanity's flag on yet another world. The age of human expansion had truly begun. The Galactic Council chambers felt hollow and cold as Chancellor Kethvar walked slowly to his crystal throne, his forearms trembling with age and exhaustion. 20 years had passed since the exile of humanity, and the great hall that once hosted representatives from 12 proud species now held only 7. The Vakari had withdrawn after their homeworld burned in the wars. The hegemony collapsed when their economy failed. The Altarians had gone silent 6 months ago, their last message a desperate plea for help that no one could answer. Ambassador Lisa Carter's old seat remained empty, a reminder of what they had lost when they cast humanity out in fear and ignorance. Kethvar stared at that empty chair and wondered if this was what defeat looked like. Not a sudden crushing blow, but a slow bleeding of hope until nothing remained but regret. The situation reports, he said quietly to the assembled delegates. The Stellan representative, her mechanical form showing signs of poor maintenance, spoke first. Trade volume has decreased by 68%. The shipping lanes are too dangerous to maintain without neutral stations. Pirates attack our vessels with impunity because we lack the resources to patrol the trade routes. The Zephyrian delegate, much younger than Kethvar and untested in real crisis, shifted nervously. Our colonial expansion has stopped completely. 3 worlds have been abandoned due to terraforming failures. We cannot maintain the atmospheric processors without human technical support. The research consortium has published no new discoveries in 4 years, added the representative from the scientific collective. Innovation has stagnated across all fields. We have been reduced to maintaining existing technology rather than advancing it. Kethvar closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his species' decline pressing down on him. When he had been young and proud, casting out the humans had seemed like preserving the natural order. Now it felt like suicide by arrogance. What of the intelligence reports? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. The head of Council Intelligence, a being whose species specialized in information gathering, activated a holographic display. We have detected unusual energy signatures coming from the galactic rim, massive construction projects using technology we cannot identify, quantum distortions that suggest faster-than-light travel methods beyond our understanding, the display. showed star charts with anomalous readings scattered across impossible distances. The signals appear to be coordinated despite being separated by thousands of light years. Whatever is building these structures has communication capabilities that violate known physics. Could it be the humans? Asked the Stellan representative. Impossible, Kethavar replied automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. They were restricted to their home system. We would have detected any expansion beyond Sol space. Unless they develop technology, we cannot detect the intelligence, Chief said quietly. Our monitoring stations report no human activity in Sol space for the past 5 years. No ships, no communications, no signs of life. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Either humanity had died out completely, which seemed unlikely given their resilience, or they had found a way to become invisible to Council surveillance. There is more, the intelligence chief continued. We intercepted fragments of communication using quantum entanglement principles. The encryption is unbreakable, but the mathematical structure suggests human origin. Kethavar stood slowly, his aged joints protesting. Show me. The holographic display shifted to show a 3-dimensional representation of the galaxy. Dozens of points of light appeared in regions that should have been empty space, connected by lines that represented the mysterious communications network. If these signals are human in origin, then they have established a presence in over 40 star systems, across 3 galaxy arms. The scale of such an operation would require resources and technology far beyond what they possessed 20 years ago. That is impossible, protested the Zephyrian delegate. No species could expand so far so quickly. No species bound by council regulations, corrected the intelligence chief. But we exiled them from those restrictions. Kethavar stared at the display, his mind reeling. If humanity had truly accomplished this level of expansion, then the Council had not eliminated a threat. They had created a rival civilization that operated outside all known parameters. What of our internal situation? He asked, though he already knew it was grim. The Meridian conflict has spread to 6 systems, reported the military liaison. Civilian casualties exceed 100 million. The economic disruption has caused food shortages on 12 worlds. Refugee camps are overwhelmed, and we have no mediators to negotiate peace, Kethavar said bitterly. The humans were the only species trusted by all sides. Sir, the communications officer spoke up hesitantly. We have received a request for assistance from the Antares colony. They are experiencing crop failures and requesting emergency terraforming support. What did you tell them? That we no longer have access to such technology. Kethavar sank back into his throne, feeling older than his 200 years. Every crisis they faced seemed to trace back to the absence of human expertise. Their diplomats who could broker peace between ancient enemies. Their engineers who could make dead worlds bloom with life. Their traders who maintained the economic networks that held civilization together. Sir, the intelligence chief said carefully, there is one more thing. We have detected what appears to be a transmission directed at our emergency frequencies. The origin point is unknown, but the signal strength suggests it came from very far away. What does it say? It is a simple message, repeated on a loop. We remember our friends and mourn our enemies. Nothing more. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Kethavar knew without being told that it was a human message, sent across impossible distances to remind the Council of what they had chosen. They are still out there, he said quietly, growing stronger while we grow weaker. What are your orders, Chancellor? Kethavar looked around the nearly empty chamber, seeing the shadows of all the species that had once gathered here in strength and unity. Pride had driven them to reject the humans. Pride had prevented them from admitting their mistake, and pride would be the death of everything they had built. Prepare a message, he said finally. Broadcast it on all frequencies, including the old human channels. What should the message say? Kethavar stood and walked to the great window that looked out over the capital city of Nexus Prime. In the distance, he could see the lights of ships preparing to evacuate yet another failing colony. The dream of galactic unity was dying, killed by the very council that was meant to preserve it. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that the council recognizes its error. Tell them that we cast out our greatest allies in fear and ignorance. Tell them that the galaxy is dying without them, and we do not know how to heal the wounds we have created." "Sir, that would be an admission of weakness." "No," Kethavar replied, his voice stronger than it had been in years. "It would be an admission of truth, and perhaps, if we are very fortunate, it might be the first step toward redemption." The message went out that day, broadcast across the galaxy on frequencies that had been silent for 20 years. Most expected no response. After all, why would humanity forgive those who had betrayed them when they needed friends the most? But hope, like pride, was a powerful force, and sometimes it was all that stood between civilization and the dark. The first warning came from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of the Helix Nebula, when sensor operator Lieutenant Kate Murphy detected something that should not have existed. Objects moving through space at impossible speeds, too, large to be ships, but too purposeful to be natural phenomena. Her hands shook as she transmitted the readings to Fleet Command, knowing that what she was seeing would change everything. Admiral Patricia Scott stood in the command center of the orbital fortress above Nexus Prime, staring at a tactical display that showed the galaxy burning. Red markers indicated dead systems, yellow ones showed worlds under attack, and green markers were disappearing faster than her staff could update the map. In less than 6 months, an enemy from outside the galaxy had destroyed more civilizations than had fallen in the previous 1,000 years of recorded history. "Status report," she demanded. "The Vakari homeworld went dark 4 hours ago," reported Commander Ben Taylor, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "No survivors detected. The entire system appears to have been stripped of all matter." "What about the defense fleets? Destroyed. The enemy consumed them along with everything else." Patricia closed her eyes, trying to process the magnitude of the disaster. The Vakari had possessed one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, with ships that could crack planets and shields that could stop stellar radiation. They had lasted less than 3 hours against whatever was devouring its way through civilized space. Dr. Alan Cross, the Council's chief scientist, approached with a data pad containing the latest analysis of the invaders. "We have confirmed the nature of the threat," he said grimly. "They are machine intelligences, but not like anything in our databases. Their technology appears to be based on converting matter directly into energy and using that energy to replicate themselves. How do we fight them?" "We cannot," Cross replied simply. "Every weapon we fire at them provides more matter for them to consume. Every ship they destroy makes them stronger. They are not just conquering the galaxy, they are eating it." Through the command center's main window, Patricia could see the evacuation ships launching from Nexus Prime every few minutes, carrying refugees from worlds that no longer existed. Billions of beings fleeing in panic toward destinations that might not survive long enough to receive them. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Chancellor Kethavar." The elderly Zephyrian's image appeared on the main screen, his face showing the strain of leading a civilization facing extinction. Behind him, Patricia could see the chaos of the council chambers as the few remaining delegates argued over strategies that everyone knew would fail. "Admiral Scott, I am authorizing the use of Protocol 7. Patricia felt her blood turn cold. Protocol 7 was the complete destruction of Nexus Prime and everything in the system, designed to deny the invaders access to the galaxy's most advanced technology. It was a suicide order disguised as military strategy. "Sir, there are still 12 million civilians in the system, and if we do not stop the enemy here, there will be no civilians left anywhere." Kethavar's voice carried the weight of species-ending decisions. "You have 6 hours to implement the protocol." The transmission ended, leaving Patricia alone with the most terrible order any military officer could receive. She looked around the command center at her staff, seeing the same horror in their eyes that she felt in her heart. "Admiral," Commander Taylor said quietly, "there is one more option." "What are you talking about?" "The human frequencies. We could try to contact them." Patricia almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "The humans were exiled 22 years ago. Even if they survived, why would they help us after what the Council did to them?" "Because they are human," Taylor replied. "And humans do not abandon people in need, even people who have wronged them." Dr. Cross looked up from his data pad. "The quantum signature analysis suggests the invaders came from outside this galaxy. If the humans truly established colonies beyond our galactic boundaries, they might have intelligence about this threat." Patricia stared at the tactical display, watching another system go dark as the machine's swarm consumed it completely. In 6 hours, she would have to destroy everything they had fought to protect. Unless there was another way. "Open all communication channels," she ordered. "Broadcast on every frequency, including the old human bands, the communications officers." Hands moved across his console, activating transmitters that had been silent for over 2 decades. "Channels open, Admiral." Patricia took a deep breath, knowing that she was about to do something that would either save the galaxy or mark her as a traitor to the Council's memory. "Attention all vessels and installations. This is Admiral Patricia Scott of the Galactic Defense Force. Our civilization is under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. We are facing complete extinction within days." She paused, thinking of all the species that had voted to exile humanity, including her own. "To the human colonies, wherever you may be, we know we have no right to ask for your help. We cast you out when you offered friendship. We silenced you when you spoke truth. We treated you as enemies when you were our greatest allies." The command center fell silent except for the soft hum of equipment and the distant rumble of evacuation ships launching. But if you can hear this message, if you have survived and grown strong in the years since we failed you, please remember that there are innocent beings here who never chose to make you enemies, children who know nothing of the Council's crimes, civilians who only want to live in peace. Patricia's voice broke slightly as she continued. "We do not ask for forgiveness. We do not deserve it. But we beg you not to let the galaxy die for the mistakes of its leaders. You once stood with us against the darkness between stars. If you have the power to do so again, please help us." The transmission ended, and the command center remained silent for long minutes. No one expected a response. Why would humanity risk themselves for people who had betrayed them when they needed friends most? Then the communications board lit up like a stellar explosion. A signal was coming through on the emergency frequencies, powerful beyond anything in the Council's experience. The voice that emerged from the speakers was calm, professional, and unmistakably human. "Galactic Defense Force, this is Admiral Katie Reynolds of the Human Fleet. We have been monitoring the situation and are en route to provide assistance. Maintain your positions and prepare for immediate tactical coordination." Patricia felt tears streaming down her face as she replied. "Admiral Reynolds, this is Admiral Scott. We are honored by your response and grateful beyond words." "Save the gratitude, Admiral. We have a galaxy to save." Around the command center, officers who had given up hope began working with renewed purpose. The impossible had happened. Humanity had returned in their darkest hour, not seeking revenge but offering salvation. In the distance, space itself began to ripple as something vast approached through dimensions the Council had never imagined. The children of Earth were coming home, and they were no longer the helpless species that had been cast out in shame and fear. They had become something magnificent and terrible and utterly unstoppable. The real war was about to begin. Space around Nexus Prime tore open like fabric, ripping along invisible seams as the first human ships emerged from quantum tunnels that existed outside normal space-time. Admiral Katie Reynolds stood on the bridge of the flagship Liberty, watching through the main viewport as her fleet materialized around the dying galactic capital. The sight that greeted her was worse than the reports had suggested. The machine swarm covered half the sky, a writhing mass of metallic constructs that devoured everything in their path. Entire moons had been stripped down to their cores. Space. Stations that had stood for millennia were being consumed piece by piece. The orbital shipyards that had once built vessels for a dozen species now provided raw material for an enemy that grew stronger with every passing moment. Fleet status. Katie asked her operations officer. All ships reporting ready for combat. We have 300 vessels of the line plus support craft. Commander Paul Holland replied, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. Quantum tunneling drives are maintaining stable field harmonics. Energy levels at maximum. Katie nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the positions of both fleets. The surviving Council forces were clustered around Nexus Prime in a desperate defensive formation that everyone knew could not hold for more than a few hours. Her own ships, spread out in attack formation, looked tiny compared to the vast machine. Swarm, but she had learned never to judge human capabilities by appearance alone. Communications. Open a channel to Admiral Scott. The image of the Council fleet commander appeared on her screen, the woman's face showing a mixture of hope and disbelief. Admiral Reynolds, we have 47 ships still combat capable. Our weapons have proven ineffective against the enemy, but we can provide support. Understood, Admiral. Pull your forces back to minimum safe distance. This is going to get dangerous. Katie turned to her tactical officer. Analysis of enemy capabilities. The machines appear to function as a collective intelligence. They convert matter into energy through unknown means, then use that energy to replicate themselves. Standard weapons actually make them stronger by providing more material to consume, weaknesses, unknown at this time. However, their replication process appears to require a specific quantum frequency. If we could disrupt that frequency, do it, Katie ordered. All ships prepare to engage. Target the quantum disruption array. The human fleet moved forward with fluid precision that spoke of years fighting battles the galaxy had never heard about. Their ships were works of art and engineering that made the finest Council vessels look primitive by comparison. Hulls that seemed to bend light around them. Weapons that fired coherent energy extracted from the quantum foam itself. Shields that could turn aside the focused output of an entire star. Dr. Alan Cross watched from the Council Command Center as humanity engaged an enemy that had destroyed civilizations across half the galaxy. Their technology, he whispered in amazement. How is this possible? 23 years of development without interference or limitation, Admiral Scott replied. We gave them the greatest gift possible when we exiled them. We gave them freedom. The first human weapons struck the machine swarm with effects that defied understanding. Where Council forces had found their attacks absorbed and converted into enemy strength, human energy disruptors caused entire sections of the swarm to simply cease existing. Not destroyed, not damaged, but erased from reality as if they had never been built. Commander Paul Holland targeted the largest machine construct, a vessel the size of a small moon that served as a coordination hub for the swarm. His ship Arrow dove through enemy fire that would have vaporized any Council vessel, its quantum shields deflecting attacks that could crack planets. Firing quantum singularity torpedo, he reported. The weapon struck the machine construct and reality folded in on itself for a brief moment. When space returned to normal, the massive enemy vessel was gone, leaving only empty vacuum where it had been. Across the swarm, smaller machines began to move erratically as their coordination network collapsed. Katie smiled grimly as she watched the enemy formation begin to break apart. All ships, execute Pattern Omega. Time to end this. The human fleet spread out in a formation that resembled a three-dimensional net, each ship positioned to cover specific areas of space. Energy weapons fired in perfect synchronization, creating a web of destruction that trapped the machine swarm in overlapping fields of quantum disruption. Dr. Cross could barely comprehend what he was seeing. They are not just fighting the machines. They are systematically dismantling the fundamental forces that allow them to exist. Admiral Reynolds. Admiral Scott called over the communications channel. "The main swarm is breaking up, but we are detecting multiple smaller groups moving toward—" "Inhabited systems already tracking them," Katie replied. "We have ships positioned throughout the galaxy. No machine will escape destruction." As she spoke, reports began coming in from across civilized space. Human fleets appearing at threatened worlds just as the machine swarms arrived. Battles that lasted minutes instead of hours. Entire invasion forces eliminated before they could consume a single asteroid. The tide of war turned not over days or weeks, but in a matter of hours. The enemy that had seemed unstoppable was being systematically destroyed by weapons and tactics it could not counter. The machine intelligence that had devoured half the galaxy found itself facing an opponent that had transcended the normal rules of physics. Chancellor Kethvar arrived at the command center as the last enemy ships were being eliminated. His ancient eyes took in the tactical displays showing human vessels protecting worlds across dozens of star systems. "It is over," he said quietly. "Yes," Admiral Scott replied. Thanks to them, Katie's image appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but not unkind. "The immediate threat has been neutralized. Our cleanup crews are working to eliminate any remaining machine fragments. Medical and engineering support ships are standing by to assist with reconstruction efforts." Kethvar stepped forward, his forearms trembling with emotion. "Admiral Reynolds, on behalf of the surviving members of the Galactic Council, I offer our unconditional surrender. We have no right to ask for mercy after what we did to your people, but we place ourselves at your disposal." Katie was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of years spent building something better in the darkness between stars. "Chancellor, we did not return for conquest or revenge. We returned because people were dying, and we do not abandon those in need. What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Katie replied simply. "We want to give you something. A chance to be part of something better than what came before. A galaxy where no species rules over others, where differences are celebrated instead of feared, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." She gestured to someone off-screen, and President Carl Johnson appeared beside her. The leader of humanity looked older, but carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had guided his people through their greatest trial. "The exile is over," he announced. "Not because we choose to return to the old system, but because we choose to create a new one. We invite all species to join us in building a galactic community based on cooperation instead of dominance, exploration instead of exploitation, hope instead of fear." Dr. Cross looked at the displays showing human ships protecting worlds that had once voted to exile them. "Why?" he asked. "After everything we did, why did you save us?" Katie smiled, and for a moment she looked like the young officer who had once stood beside Admiral Morrison in the council chambers. "Because that is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We help those who need help. We forgive those who ask for forgiveness. And if we refuse your offer, then you are free to rebuild your civilization as you see fit," President Johnson replied. "We will not force our vision on anyone, but we will be here if you need us, as we have always been." Chancellor Kethvar looked around the command center at the officers and scientists who had witnessed humanity's return. Some wept openly. Others stood in stunned silence. All understood that they were present at the birth of a new age. "On behalf of all free peoples of the galaxy," he said formally, "we accept your offer of partnership. We place ourselves under the protection of the human alliance, not as subjects, but as equals working toward a common future." The war was over. The galaxy was saved. And humanity, cast out in silence and shame, had returned as the guardians they had always been meant to be. The universe would never be the same.